While you hear, do snoring lie. Open-eyed conspiracy, his time doth take. Welcome, friends, wherever you are. I pray you are safe and warm and well-fed. And thanks once again for inviting me into your home. The other night on one of the movie channels, I happened to catch a movie that came out about, maybe 35 years ago. It was directed by a Canadian filmmaker, director Ted Kotcheff. It was called Who is Killing the Great Chefs of Europe? Do you remember that? It's kind of a comedy mystery film, and I'm trying to remember who it was in. George Segal and the lovely Jacqueline Bisset, and an old British actor that I remember, Robert Morley. And the idea is the great chefs of Europe are being killed, but in a manner sort of reflecting their most famous dishes. So, for example, the lobster chef is drowned, and in the book, the recipe for each dish is given and so forth. And it was kind of apropos that movie would be playing, because I don't know if you've been following the trail of all these dead bankers. Who is killing the great bankers of Europe and elsewhere? Some in Hong Kong and even one in Colorado. There was earlier this month an investment banker at J.P. Morgan who jumped to his death from the roof of the bank's headquarters. And witnesses say the man went to the roof of the building in the heart of Hong Kong's Central District, and despite attempts to talk him down, he jumped to his death. And this was not just an isolated incident. There are, by some count, now 20 bankers, many of them foreign exchange traders, who have died under suspicious circumstances in the last couple of months. January 26th, former Deutsche Bank executive found dead in his South Kensington home after police responded to reports of a man found hanging at a house. And he had close ties to the Deutsche Bank chief executive. Gabriel McGee, a 39-year-old senior manager at J.P. Morgan, European headquarters, jumped 500 feet from the top of the bank's headquarters in central London. Mike Duker, the former economist at Russell Investments, fell down a 50-foot embankment in what police are describing as a suicide. Richard Talley, 57, founder of American Title Services in Centennial, Colorado, was found dead earlier this month after apparently shooting himself with a nail gun. 37-year-old J.P. Morgan executive director Ryan Henry Crane died last week. Tim Dickinson, a UK-based communication director at Swiss Re AG, also died last month. So, did all these men actually kill themselves? There's reason to believe that at least some of those deaths may not have been suicides at all. What is going on here? How in the world would someone be able to shoot themselves with a nail gun? 8 nail gun wounds to his torso and his head in the case of Richard Talley. We're going to get into that right now with the founder of the Trends Research Institute, Gerald Celente. Is a well-respected gentleman for his track record of picking businesses, consumer, political, and economic trends before they come to pass. And it's his job to see the future and understand how the issues and events of today will determine the trends of tomorrow. Gerald Celente, how are you?
I'm fine, Richard.
Well, we can't say the same for a lot of these bankers. We're hearing that a number of them have been jumping off of buildings and have been found in stairwells and found dead under suspicious circumstances. Now, I've read recently where you said the number may be as high as 20 mysterious deaths. What's going on here with these bankers?
Well, it's really hard to say, and I mean, you look back in January, $3 trillion was wiped out of the equity markets. So if you're involved in that, and you're losing everything, and people lose everything and they have nothing left to lose, they lose it. So you don't really know what's going on, and you can't look into people's lives. And then you're looking at all the scandals going on. It's every day. It's virtually every day. The latest The saddest, funniest one that just came out is UBS is looking to make a deal, and so they don't have to be brought up on charges with rigging the rates. And it's one after another. There's rigging going on everywhere. So who knows what when? But here's the way I look at it, Richard. whether or not these guys are killing themselves because they know too much, or being pushed off the cliff by somebody else.
Suicided, as they say.
Yeah, suicided. To me, that's not the issue. How much more proof do people need that the game is rigged? This isn't a conspiracy. It's a fact. They rigged the LIBOR rates. It's a fact. It's in black and white for anybody to read. They rig the Forex markets. That's only $5.3 trillion a day. It's a fact. Hey, check this one out. Jim Cramer, you know that guy on CNBC?
Sure, never met a stock he didn't like.
That's right. He's on Yahoo Tape Ticker, and he says, quote, "The market is rigged," end quote. How much more proof do people need? Like, how many bankers have to fall off buildings? So to me, it's not that. It's that everybody knows. How much more proof do they need? And so to me, it's, everybody knows that none of the white shoe boys ever do jail time. It's only the lower people on the pecking order.
Yeah, they pick someone like a Bernie Madoff to take the fall. Yet recently, was it Goldman Sachs or J.P. Morgan that was found guilty of essentially enabling the Bernie Madoff scheme?
J.P. Morgan Chase, and nobody got any time for it. And the heads that do roll, these people like with the name like, Gupta Sanjay or something, to get an Indian guy, that looks dark and nobody likes him. That's
right, they do the perp
cat,
walk.
So they'll get him, but it's I said this when it began in 2008. This is not capitalism. When they came out with too big to fail. By definition, it's the merger of state and corporate powers.
That's fascism.
Exactly. And that's what we have, particularly in the United States. We've lost our constitutional rights, our Bill of Rights. They are raping us in any possible way that they can. And it's a total multinational takeover. What's going on in Ukraine, all anyone has to do, if they have the inclination to do so, is to type in Victoria Nuland, N-U-L-A-N-D, the Assistant Secretary of State, and the National Press Club, Washington. I think it's like December, 13th, 2013, 14th or 15th, around there, 2013. And here she is, giving a speech, prepared speech. Right next to her, the people that are promoting this event, a big chevron sign that she's standing next to. And she's railing on about how we have to bring democracy to Ukraine. And then at the very end, she spills the beans. We, the taxpayer, have pumped in $5 billion into Ukraine through these so-called NGOs. Yeah, NGOs, FUs, and that's what they are. And they're fronts. $5 billion. And she goes on to say that the only future for Ukraine is to join the European Union and to follow the path set forth by the IMF.
There you go.
So it's right there for everyone to hear. So now I say to myself, what is this? Who is she? What's she talking about? United States, and of course I know the deal. I'm just saying this to make it clear. Talking about why Ukraine has to join the EU. She's from the United States. And why they have to follow the path of the IMF. So for anybody that's over 6 years old, knows how to feed themselves, drive a car, and take a shower or a bath, they should figure it out. It's a takeover by the multinationals and the money changers mafia.
And the Ukraine is sitting on an awful lot of natural gas, from what I understand.
The pipelines go through natural gas. Again, Chevron, Anybody can see the picture. This isn't a conspiracy. It's a fact, Jack.
So it's a repeat
right there.
It's a repeat of what we saw during this phony Arab Spring, when a lot of these NGOs are funding a lot of these so-called spontaneous, freedom movements. But it's about creating client states.
Exactly. And what it is about, matter of fact, I was on Russia Today on February 20th. People could see the interview out of Moscow, not the one out of the United States, talking about this. And I said, what this is, it's the European Union and the United States wanting to take more control of Eastern Europe and weaken Russia. That's all this is about. And raping. Now, listen, let's figure this out. You don't have to be too smart to even figure this one out. Anybody listening? Who in their right mind would want to join the EU? Hey, they're doing a great job with Greece, huh? Whoa, hey, how about Italy? Wonderful time.
Yeah, 60% unemployment.
Spain. Isn't Spain beautiful? Yeah, the rain in Spain. How about Ireland? Oh, terrific, having a great time. What about Portugal? Oh, yeah, jobs aplenty. Prosperity is just around the corner. What imbecile would want to join the EU?
Yeah, I mean,
so this is just a money mafia deal.
Right. Gerald Celente is with us, publisher of TrendsJournal and the website, TrendsJournal.com. Let me just go back to the bankers for a moment, and I know that you're saying that this is symptomatic. This is not the story, but it is intriguing that so many of, because you mentioned J.P. Morgan, and so many of these bankers have ties to J.P. Morgan, and again we have these bankers in the prime of their life. Otherwise healthy. Their deaths came as a total surprise to their families, not suffering from, mental illness or anything. So it does beg the question, why would they be knocked off if in fact they were suicided? Let me leave you with that thought, Gerald. We'll take a time out and come back and talk a little bit about who is killing the bankers. Gerald Celente, publisher of TrendsJournal, right here on The Conspiracy Show. Don't go away.
When in doubt, blame the government. You're listening to The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett from Zoomer Radio, AM 740.
Wake up, everybody. Next time on The Happy Gang.
John Gallagher returns, and of course, Johnny will have a recap of the Winter Olympics finale and the big gold medal game as well, of course.
It is going to be a busy week for concerts next week, including Mark Masri on stage. Rock group Chicago performs, and two big stars together, Paul Simon and Sting. This will have great music and lots of laughs on the next Happy Gang.
Wake up with the Happy Gang and AM 740.
Earnings vary based on your effort. Do you want to learn how to make money flipping houses right here in Toronto in the Golden Horseshoe? If so, we have an amazing opportunity for you. We're looking for a small group of motivated individuals to join our real estate investing team. You'll learn our simple 3-step system for flipping homes right here in the local area. This is Than Merrill, star of A&E's hit TV show Flip This House. My team and I are looking for a handful of people in the Toronto and Golden Horseshoe area who want to learn how to make money flipping houses in your spare time using other people's money. Toronto and the Golden Horseshoe are perfect markets for my system, and this week I'm holding a free 2-hour educational workshop where you will learn how to make money flipping homes and how to build long-term wealth with income properties.
To get 2 free tickets to Than's workshop, call 1-800-591-2316. Seating is extremely limited. Call in the next 10 minutes and you'll also reserve a free copy of Than's Money for Deals Guide. That's 1-800-591-2316. That's 1-800-591-2316.
When you're as proud as the Welshire of Dylan Thomas, a birthday can quickly turn into a year. 2014, the centenary of the birth of Dylan Thomas, and Canada.visitwales.com invites you to the party to walk the birthday walk in Larne, soak up the culture, and meet some Welsh characters along the way. Come visit Wales in the year of their native son. Go online to Canada.visitwales.com.
When you look at the sky, ever wonder if someone's looking back? This is The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett on Zoomer Radio, AM 740. To speak to Richard live, call 416-360-0740 or toll free in Ontario, 1-866-740-4740.
We're back with Gerald Celente, publisher of TrendsJournal, and the website is trendsjournal.com. Gerald, back to these bankers, and I've heard anywhere from 3 to now 20 that have died under mysterious circumstances. A number of them were foreign exchange traders, and a number of them were tied to J.P. Morgan. So I know we're in the realm of speculation here, but what do you think would have cost them their lives? Was it the fact that is it some sort of cover-up? You mentioned the Forex trading and how these markets are being fixed, but what would cause someone to push them or have them thrown off a building?
Again, the reason I don't really like to speculate on this is because you don't know what's going on with somebody's life, in their personal lives. It could be marital problems, it could be family problems, it could be a whole health problems, it could be a whole array of problems. But as I see it, one of the big problems, again, only looking at it from the outside, and is that $3 trillion was wiped out in January. And it's only going to get worse. So are they losing their lives because they lost so much? Or, again, look at the facts with you mentioned the Forex. These guys are, doing currency trading. And you look at the LIBOR fixing. And it's a very fair question to ask, did they know too much? And were they ready now not to take the rap and spill the beans? That is a very, very, it's a very rational way of looking at this. It's not, wild speculation because, again, it's a fact. No one's making it up. We know that these markets are rigged. We're talking about the LIBOR, $700 trillion worth of interest rates being rigged over the years. And as I said, about $5.3 trillion a day on the Forex, and we know that they're rigged. So these guys may have known too much, and maybe they didn't want to be the fall guys, so they were forced to take the fall.
Would any of this have to do with attempts by the central planners or whatever you want to call them, in maintaining the status of the United States as the reserve currency?
I don't know, because I don't think these guys are big enough to influence that, even if they know it. If what they knew had to do with dirty deals, that's what I could understand it as. But, keeping the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency is a much, much, much broader issue. That's not going to be, as I see it, again, I could be 100% wrong on this.
We mentioned the manipulation in the Forex and other manipulations, and I wanted to get your take on the manipulation in the precious metals market. Granted, the gold market, silver market, pretty small compared to some of these others, and maybe even that lends itself to greater manipulation because it is such a small market. But to what extent do you imagine that the gold and the silver markets are being manipulated?
Totally.
100%.
100%. Because you have the two markets. They're distinct from each other. There's physical gold and, of course, the paper gold. And I say this with somewhat having experience in this. I bought my first gold buy, 100 ounces of gold, in 1978. I was trading. And I didn't know what I was doing. The whole thing was just opening up back then. And I also bought at the highest point when it collapsed in January of 1980. There was no physical market. There was the United States was trading. There was no Russia. Everybody behind the Soviet Union, east of Berlin, was locked behind the Iron Curtain. There was no China. Mao Zedong had just died. It was a whole different world. There was no India buying gold like they are now. So now you have strong physical demand. As a matter of fact, now China is the number one purchaser of gold, and there's also speculation that China's buying up so much gold so they can use the yuan as their reserve currency and back it by gold. How's that for a quaint thought? So you have a very different market today than it was back then. Back then it was, you talk about thinly traded, it was only the United States and a little bit going on in Europe and Japan. Now it's a global market. So there's a huge disconnect between physical and paper. And physical is the real market. The paper market's being manipulated, as Jim Cramer says. Quote, the markets are rigged, end quote.
In order to what's the purpose of suppressing the price of gold? Again, does it have to do with maintaining the U.S. dollar?
Absolutely, and it's not only the U.S. dollar; it's the euro, it's the dollar, it's most of the fiat currencies, and so people know that. I mean, even with this tapering, they're only pumping in $65 billion a month. They cut it back $20 billion. And when they cut it back, the world equity markets go into panic. So the reason why you have such strong demand overseas in Asia, the people have been around a long time. They're hip to the game. They know that these currencies come and go, but gold lasts from the beginning of time to now, and it's not going anywhere.
Where is the physical gold coming from, though, Gerald? If you look at China importing, and we only know what goes through, I guess, Shanghai, and it's that combined with India, and they're smuggling something like 30 to 50 tons a month. That combined, I mean, is greater than the annual gold production. So where is the gold coming from? Well, again, that's a very good question, because as many people know, the Germans, Richard, are having a very difficult time getting their gold back. And they're not going to get it back ostensibly till 2020, because the U.S., France, and the U.K. are holding it. And I guess you know that it takes a long time to strap gold onto the legs of carrier pigeons and send them across, the channel, you know? So, shipping takes a long time. So there is no gold, is what a lot of people speculate, and that there is enough in the system coming out of, between central banks selling it and other ones picking it up to fill the market void. And what you mentioned about India is very important, being that they used to be the largest buyer of physical gold, but because of so many, and it goes back to why did they want to keep the price of gold down, because with the rupee getting bashed because of the tapering and the hot money flowing into these emerging markets where the money was getting greater yields, they've put on restrictions on importing gold and taxing it to make it almost impossible. So there's a virtual shortage of gold now in India. So, and Indians like gold as much as, curry. And they're doing everything they can to stop it. So that's what they're doing. It's the central banks trying to make it appear that their worthless currencies are worth something. Is it possible that the U.S. is willingly, and these bullion banks are willingly emptying their vaults and shipping it to China in exchange for some sort of an agreement that that China will not, dump all their U.S. treasuries?
I would doubt it. I don't think anybody's going to tell the Chinese what to do. And they're dumping them, matter of fact. They're buying less and less and dumping more and more. But the Chinese can't dump them too much either, because they're going to take a beating on it. So they're really in a catch-22. But I don't think there's that kind of negotiation, particularly when we just heard the going back and forth of the Treasury Secretary Liu and China's Liu, L-O-U, debating on the issues of whether China should open up more to U.S. and whether they should do more to boost their economy, and Liu coming back at the United States and saying that their economy, our economy in the States, is a fraudulent economy. Basically, he didn't use those words, but he said it's really just propped up by stimulus, and it's only stimulating a very few. So, and then you look at what's going on too between China and Japan, and the United States taking a position in Japan, and Japan's newfound militarism and the ending of their pacifism since World War II, and the ratcheting up of hostilities between China and Japan in the East China Sea. I don't think the United States is going to be doing that kind of deal with China.
Gerald Celente, publisher of TrendsJournal and the website trendsjournal.com. You mentioned the Ukraine, and obviously we have instability in places like Argentina and Brazil and some of these emerging markets. But what else has you particularly concerned as we head into, I guess, the end of the first quarter of 2014?
Well, that's the big one. There's global unrest everywhere. Populist movements throughout the world, whether it's Italy, France, Netherlands, Hungary, Austria, name the country, Scotland. And then you have, of course, the Thailand. The people have been out in the streets now, for 3 months? I mentioned the instability between China and Japan building up. The United States just announcing troop deals and with and arms deals with Philippines, and also part of that pivot to Asia. You have the destabilization, as you mentioned, in Ukraine, also Bulgaria, Romania. You have war in Yemen and Libya and Syria. You have Central Africa, Somalia, Sudan, Uganda, Congo. All of these places are all destabilized. You mentioned Argentina, Brazil, and now, of course, Venezuela. And what I believe is going to happen is, the TrendsJournal, it was 2 years ago we wrote it, the first great war of the 21st century. It's begun. It's underway. People are just waiting for that Archduke Ferdinand moment to say it's official. And I'm very concerned because just as World War I began by madmen called leaders, prime ministers and presidents or whatever, took their people to a needless war, they're doing it again. When all else fails, they take you to war. And so the other one, of course, is this whole tapering thing. The only reason the emerging markets boomed as they did was because of all of the cheap money flowing out of the United States, getting higher yields in these other countries, and now that money's flowing out, and the economies are going down. I believe there's going to be probably one more round of tapering. Maybe this is even it, the last one, but they're going to come up with another stimulus program. And when that happens, that's when you're going to see gold and silver prices really take off. Also important to note that since the new year began, gold has had a nice little run up. That's not to say it can't be knocked down, $100, $150 in 2 days or a day, because the Federal Reserve, has the power to do that, as do other banks. Let's not forget the New York Fed has its own trading desk on the floor of the stock exchange. And they have all these other pieces of financing to rig markets, so they can knock down the price. However, having said that, the rise of gold since the beginning of the year has really been organic, as I see it. And I think it's going to continue, and when they come out with the next round of tapering, it'll be the next round of the next gold and silver bull runs.
Gerald,
not tapering, excuse me, stimulus.
Gerald, we have about 30 seconds. Leave us with something positive for 2014 as we look. What has you kind of optimistic about 2014?
Well, everything's in the people's hands. That's, one of the sayings I just came up with. I'm sure I'm not the first one that said it, but why is it that so few could rule and ruin the lives of so many? And why is it that so many let so few rule and ruin their lives? And so when people find the courage within themselves, then it'll change. As the way I look at it, there are 80% don't know what's going on. They're lost. 10% destroyers and 10% builders. Right now the destroyers are doing the destruction. It's time for the builders to come in. And again, I want to make this 100% clear. I don't believe in violent revolutions. We're beyond that point. We could have a more... Matter of fact, my other new saying is moral might, not military might.
Amen to that. Gerald Celente, publisher of the TrendsJournal, and again, the website, trendsjournal.com. Always a pleasure, Gerald. We'll do this again real soon, I hope.
Thank you so much, Richard. All the best.